Next application is adjourned until June 11th. Did we send out a letter on this application to, I mean, it's been a while now.
I thought they sent us a letter.
Well, John was here last time.
Yeah,
and
that just
asked for-
happened.
Oh, yes, well,
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently had-
All right, so the motion would be to approve the applicant's request to adjourn until June 11th.
No, it's already
it's
done.
adjourned.
Sorry? It's already been
It's
done.
adjourned.
All right, next application, please.
Next application is Elm Street Holdings at 120 Elm Street. This is,
The applicant present?
For the second meeting in a row, Pam Pospisil and Brown Architects, for the second meeting in a row, I am the dubious honor of following that last application. I've been shaken to the core. Just as a refresher, I think there were three points that the board brought up last meeting that were of concern to you. One was the use of metal on the roof. Second was the loss of the chimney. And the third was the side addition, the roof being hipped. And then I should say the fourth was, it was pending report by Mr. Studenroth regarding whether this structure was contributing or not to the historic district.
Mr. Stubenroff, your summation? Yeah, your summation on the,
Yeah, it's in the record. Maybe I should. It's not terribly long, but I'll try to wrap it up. Anyway, I arranged a site visit with Pam, the architect. The house is indeed a contributing resource and is in the inventory, has a nomination form. It's described as a 2.5-story wood frame gable roof shingled house with a cross gable to the rear, 2/1 windows, which it still retains, a side entrance plan, full front porch with turn posts. The house is dated circa 1900 in the form, but there are interesting details on the house, including some decorative window sashes up in the attic level, and the front door suggests a slightly earlier construction date from that. But what's most important and interesting is that while the survey of the village was done in 1984 and the district was created within a year or two after that, very significant enlargements. These additions were built later. These were built in the 90s. And I mean, they exist, but it was surprising to us, I think, to realize that the house was considered contributing due to the fact that it's been extended so much and so recently. But it is.
Are there plans in the file for those
No,
extensions?
but the building cards reflect
Oh, they
approval.
did? Okay.
Yeah, of when applications were made and.
Because I think they're unfortunate.
They're architecturally, yeah. So it's kind of miraculous to try to pull all that together, and I think that's what the essence of this proposal is to clean up the fenestration, to get some regular materials going there. But I think the most important fact here is that none of the work that's proposed impacts the surviving historical portions of the house. And that's kind of the bottom line. And so we took a look. It was pouring rain. It was somewhat challenging, but we walked around through the mud and saw the whole thing. So basically then my recommendations are simply that the additions and alterations that have been submitted are appropriate. They're certainly limited to the modest extension to the rear of the house, which is not in the public view, and to improving the finishes and the fenestration. So, and I recognize that would be a lot of metal, so I think that's a good observation that using wood shingle would probably be more appropriate. That's my recommendation.
okay.
may I just ask Zach, I think you had brought up the issue of the chimney originally.
Yes, yeah. I think the house has been so modified now that to try to go back and restore something is just really not significant to the massing of the house anymore. I think it's a small point.
That being said, we are changing to cedar shingle roof. We are prepared to put the chimney back on. And I have difficulty with re-roofing that side addition in the gable fashion as you had wanted. So I have not changed that. That remains hipped, but I would like to just point out that the front porch on the street side of the house is also hipped roof. So I think that there's a language there that works. And it is set back considerably.
Thank you for making the modifications that were suggested. We appreciate the amount of time and work you did, and not only hearing, but kind of following some of these suggestions this board made. We obviously don't want to design your home, but suggestions are always kind and sometimes deserved, so appreciate the time. Rob, you have any other comments?
No, I appreciate the explanation of the hip roof sort of matching the roof on the porch. I continue to have a major concern with the fact that, to me, that roof line, which dovetails with the roof line of the main house, has the effect, in my opinion, of blurring the two forms and losing, therefore, the definition of the original four-square house. And so I don't think anything is going to change that. Now, that's in elevation, and I know you'll see angles because it's set back a little bit, but I always get concerned when an original form of an old house gets visually blurred or compromised, and I feel that's what's happening here. I recognize there's a lot that's already going on this property with the additions in the 90s, so it's not a deal breaker. On the other hand, it's an objection that I have continued.
Christina?
I agree.
Susan?
I agree with Rob, too. It's too bad that they did what they did in the 90s, because I think it's really, even from Elm Street, glaring errors. And I think you've tried to ameliorate some of it, but it just is really sad.
Jeff?
I appreciate the changes you made, and I'm okay with the design.
Any public comment on the application? Board members, this is in a historic district. Do you feel that the amount of changes that have been made now lead us to a favorable decision on this application and want to move forward to close for the written decision?
I do.
Rob?
Yes.
Okay. It is in the historic district, therefore the decision will be in writing. So at the next meeting or 2 meetings? Next meeting. Next meeting. We'll have the written report.
And it's not necessary that I be present, is that correct?
Your discretion.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Motion to close for written decision by council.
I make a motion that we close the application of Elm Street Holdings for written decision by our council.
Motion by Christina. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Susan. All in favor. Rob? Aye. Susan?
Aye.
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Be here Monday.
Next application, please.
The next application is for 20 Meadow Lane. This is additions, modifications in an existing structure. Let me just find the affidavit. Okay, thank you very much. Posting an affidavit now.
Revisiting this one, huh?
Revisiting? No,
Go
this is
ahead.
first. No,
Go
it's first. Melissa Dedovich, Peconic Environmental Associates. I'm here on behalf of the Deans, the property owners. I'm here with Jennifer Gass from Daniel Romualdez. I always screw that up. Architects, and we're here to put a minor addition and do some minor tweaks to the existing house that was built in 1996. As always, we brought mini plans.
Thank you.
Actually, but we also did two. You'll see the first one's because it's changes to the existing house, like enclosing porches. Those are actually photographs that show and bubble the areas that are going to be enclosed. These are the mini plans that show the architectural elevations and the renderings of what we're doing.
The age of the house, it was built in
1996.
96. Right? And have there been any changes to the house since 96?
They added swimming pool.
There was a connection done, yes.
It's a connection, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't changed.
Yeah.
The connection.
right.
When?
I want to say within the last
6 years ago, maybe.
about 10
I
years.
honestly don't remember. Yeah, we weren't involved in that.
I mean, it's not important. It's just
Curiosity. That's what I'm saying.
So I can start with, on the west wing of the existing property, there, we want to extend for a new construction. So you can see on SK04, there's an existing enclosed, say, porch area. We're going to enclose that, plus add another 9 feet to it, and extend the second story out as well over that. So that's the biggest change that's going on here. In addition, at the master, on the south side and the east side, there are 2 balconies at the second story that we'd like to enclose. We're going to keep the same Palladian-style windows that are there. There's currently a Palladian-style opening. We're going to keep that, but just glass it in. And then on the first floor, on the south side of the property, enclose an area that's underneath an existing balcony. So
Can you show us that in the
Actually, if you look on the mini plans, we have existing and proposed with the bubbled and
Yes,
called
this is
out.
very helpful. That's what.
So that's, so, Charlie, I'm trying to do this for you.
Okay, yeah, I have it. Enlarged.
You're welcome. You want to use that one?
Well, it's bigger, if that helps them.
Okay.
That helps you?
Sure.
I have it with and without the bubbles in case the bubbles are too confusing. So this is the existing south facade. And so this is the area that we're going to be actually extending out. And it's going to look pretty identical to what's currently there. We're adding a cupola, just like the existing cupola that's there, having a dormer at the face of it. It's all going to be done in the same vernacular. Our goal is that it looks like what it was originally built. Then if you move over along the plan, you'll see that we're adding an opening. The house is very dark, so the goal inside. So we're adding all of these nano wall openings underneath the balcony.
Can you be more specific as to where you are on the house? I appreciate.
This is
your
actually the
point to
ocean
point.
front side of the house.
Right,
This
so
is
what
towards,
part, the middle, the east end, the west end, first floor?
At the middle, you'll see the 3 bubbles that say new nano wall extension.
I'm asking you to explain it to me as if I'm not looking at the
Oh, I
at the
see.
map, at the
Okay.
plans.
So then in the middle.
South facade.
In the south facade, in the middle of the south facade, we're going to be enlarging the openings and doing a portion of the facade, of the footprint will be brought out, but within the existing porch location.
if
So
you
it's
see
not-
it on the
So
site
you're
plan,
enclosing the porch, that's correct?
Thank you, yes,
Correct,
a small portion of
so
it,
you
yes.
might propose
Adding
addition.
windows on top of it? Oh, you're putting
Correct.
different windows. Okay.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, the existing windows are up here,
Yeah, I see it.
right.
So you're grouping the windows rather than the gaps and the different variations of, okay.
Making more
Right.
of a wall of windows
All
as
right.
opposed to
And
bricks.
yeah, that one eyebrow just
Yeah.
like this winking at you.
I don't think 2
Like when
is
somebody
an
loses
improvement.
their eyebrow, yeah.
2 is both winking.
I think 2 gives it symmetry.
It gives it
That's
symmetry.
it.
It definitely gives it symmetry.
It's my most unfavorite thing, but that's already there, but
Right, I mean, you can tell from
So you
perhaps,
have a lot of recessed decks.
yes.
Correct.
And you're trying to clean up the recessed decks.
Exactly, and that's actually on, it's shown on,
This one here, so on the south elevation, the right side of your plan, you can see the upper
Easter wing.
with the half-round window above. So that was a deck. You can see,
You're closing it.
exactly.
why don't we go over the other elevations each one by one so we can find that.
SK08, I think is the other one. Getting close.
And this is the addition, all right.
So here, if you go to SK08, you can see the existing opening with the enclosed deck above and just enclosing it, keeping a similar shape. And the chimney is currently 2 flues. We're getting rid of 1 fireplace in the house, so we're going down to a single.
SK09 explains it all for me. That's when you're showing the,
This is,
yes.
that's the addition.
You're just giving more symmetry to,
Correct.
to the bells, well, the single stem.
If you look at the site plan, you can see that these are really where the additions, and this is over the existing porch, so really only new footprint is right here. Just better, using better, better use of space. Same materials.
Jeff, you have any comments?
Oh, I didn't know whether you were looking at Robert.
No, I've been here all night, I'm going this way.
And I don't know, because it's a battle of the scalps, so,
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Anyway, no, I walked the beach today and looked at it from the back and from the front, and I think it's well-designed.
I presume we're assuming that this is a non-contributing asset?
It's 1996.
Yeah,
Bill, it's a non-contributing.
non-contributing.
Is that correct?
Yes.
It's a non-contributing asset in the historic district.
Yes.
Susan?
I have nothing to say. I don't oppose it. The eyebrow window drives me crazy. And two of them drives me crazier, but I'll withhold my comment. But so what?
I can't imagine it was just the one. I don't know how they did just the
But with all
one.
that work being done, you might rethink the whole thing up there.
Christina?
There's a lot of different windows in this building already to start with.
Thank you for giving us so much material that really explains to us what's going on.
Rob?
I always have a couple questions, so I do. You're making the one chimney smaller on the east side there because you're removing a foot.
Correct.
What is the depth and the size of the other two chimneys on the house? Do you know?
I don't, because they're, I can find out.
I mean, the reason I bring it up is because I think that deep chimneys are nice on a house of substance, and this is a house of great substance. I think as I'm looking at another elevation, I'm looking at SK05, it looks as though you're, no, sorry, it was one before that, but it looks as though there's still some wider chimneys that are staying on.
Yeah, you can actually see them on the front and back.
Yeah, so like
This is the front.
SK07 and SK08 show the other chimneys, I think.
SKO 11 also, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're losing the transoms on the first floor. There are transoms over the existing French doors.
Yes.
Is there any way to recreate that look
Well, there's,
in the nano wall?
in the nano wall.
In other words, to create sort of a false transom? I mean, it's a public view from the beach, and
Sure.
the transoms that are there now, to me, do add to the character of the house.
The house has both going on currently.
Yeah, it does.
The owners actually doesn't like the transom, so if we had to pick one, we went that way.
Okay.
But if that's the direction,
Yeah, I mean, but you're retaining the transoms elsewhere. There were some doors, there's one set of doors without transoms currently.
if there were other transoms in the same room that were remaining, then we kept the transom.
Got it. Okay.
And I think the fact that it's on the first floor, if you look at one of the photos we gave you, it's actually taken from the beach walkway. I think when you're on the beach, you actually really, you get the second floor and not as much the first floor with the public.
And I'm going to ask you a question, it's a little unfair, but should that nano wall on the second floor, and I don't have the width on it, but it's substantial, it looks like it's 25 feet wide or so.
Exactly.
Should anyone think that that looks a little commercial? I mean, did your clients have any concerns that that was a little bit commercial looking to have that stretch of doors that I assume all open, correct?
Are you
They were all-
correct? Right.
And then a wall in the middle of the south elevation on the second floor.
Having the lights in it helped us make it, to us and to them, feel that it will work better with the house.
And when it's all open, I mean, I just have a slight concern that it's going to look like a beach club, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's different to a home. So that's my slight concern on having that large an opening, particularly when they're open. But I don't want to get into the programming of what your clients want to do. It's their business, and this is a fine-looking house generally, but I do have a concern that that looks a bit commercial.
Well, I think the fact that it's right above where the first floor is and really not carried out throughout the two wings, I think you don't have that concern. I think it's just in that center area.
I would say, just to make a comment, I appreciate the care that's been taken with a lot of the details here, and the matching of the form behind the garage to, I think is very successful and pleasing, so.
You did a good job.
No more comments.
Thank you. You're showing us existing and comparing it to what's changing. It's the file as you read it. It's easy to read. This is what people should be doing when they come.
We had a
before
good
us.
coach.
You know, I really appreciate it. You don't understand how difficult it is for us sometimes to look at files.
It's
and
easier
be
to
able
walk you
compare
through
them.
this way and
So we really do appreciate that. I wish that could be a part of code. But. Any public comment on the application? All right. Property is located in the historic district, therefore it requires written decision. This board is going to seek to be in approval, so we're going to ask our council to prepare a written decision at our next meeting.
next meeting, great. Thank you.
Motion to close for written decision by council. I make the motion. Christina seconded. All in favor? Rob? Aye. Christina? Aye. Susan? Aye. Jeff?
No, you can take it.
Do you want any of this stuff?
No, you can keep it for the record, that'd be fine. Do you know how much paper is in my office?
It's going to get trashed.
There's no warehouse at my
There's
house.
no
Sorry.
Next
fire
application.
starter either.
The next application is 180 Great Plains Road, and this is construction of a two-story single-family dwelling.
He has small plans.
He has the affidavit.
Get it memorized.
Mailing. Have you submitted an affidavit of posting on this property?
No, I have not. I'm doing it now.
Great.
Sorry. And
We have an affidavit of mailing already, I believe, in here. Let me just see if that's here.
Just add it all to the file. Add it all to the file.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 small copies. Good evening, Mayor Ron McDonough, Conway Architects. On behalf of the client,
Can you say that a little slower, sir?
Mayron McDonough and Conway Architects. I'm here on behalf of the owner. Do you have renderings on file, or should I submit new renderings?
We have renderings. You have new renderings?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so these are new plans. You haven't seen
Those
these?
are, the ones before you, Mr. Chairman, are new plans, yes, sir.
Okay.
The only difference, before I go into my very brief presentation, is the fenestration of the windows. As this application was submitted about a month ago, as we looked at it in the past 4 weeks, we realized, being in the historic district and doing a gambrel, which we're doing after probably 4 or 5 years, in keeping with the area, we needed to change the fenestration before the board even commented on that. So the renderings you have before you do not have the grills, and I'm going to submit new renderings. The only difference is just the grill. Nothing else has changed.
I'm assuming he's...
These things. And no, not in any of those ones. So, okay. So is this new?
This is new.
Okay. I'm confused. Thank you.
It's the first two sheets that show the new fenestration added to the windows. If you look at the previous renderings, we did not have the grills. Let me just start briefly.
So that I know what you're referring to when you say
It's the first two
grills.
pages, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
talking about the mullions,
Mullions?
okay.
Yes,
Are you also talking about the brackets on the top end of the...
correct, correct.
All right, so
The first two renderings should be part of the record, Mr. Chairman. Like the previous application, that was a gambrel, I noticed. We decided, because of the location, we haven't done a gambrel in many, many years, especially in the village. We decided to go back and not go against the grain and do a gambrel shingle style here. Now, in many cases, even the previous projects that we have done in the village, many builders or many spec homes try to max out what they can get out of the property. This is not what we're doing here. Just want to bring it up. The property is 4 acres, over 4.4 acres. And what we're doing, the builder, the owner could have done more, but we decided not to do that and come up with a new gambrel that fits that property. The idea of a sweeping gable or a modern barn-type structure was also entertained, but we went back to square one and a gambrel. And as I said before, as we looked at in the past 4 or 5 weeks, we decided that we need some improvement before it gets to the board. The materials we're proposing are the typical material that you see on every shingle-style home: cedar roofs, red cedar roof, left natural, and red cedar siding, 5.5 to 6 inches exposure. For the trim and casing around the windows, we're proposing AZAC, which is a PVC material, which would be pretty much maintenance-free. The windows are going to be white. Gutters and leaders would be copper. And again, in keeping with all these shingle-style homes that have been introduced for the past 30 or 40 years to the village. I'll be open to any
So
comments.
in the front entryway, you're swaying that roof line straight up to the flat overhang?
Yeah, very much,
Okay.
yes.
So it basically, it's become more aggressive at that point? What's the slope?
It's not a flat, Mr. Chairman. If you look at the elevation, black and white colors, it has a...
Use your larger plan if you have it.
I didn't bring larger
That's
plans.
fine, instead of flat.
If you look at this picture here, there's a slight slope to this roof. It's not flat. The view you're looking at from the rendering doesn't really, it's eye level, doesn't pick up that sloping roof. It's right here.
And you're introducing an eyebrow on just the
Yeah.
center portion,
Yes.
and it just looks out of place.
I disagree, but I'm listening.
Just for clarification, because on the black and white, you have square mullions on the 3-part window over the front door, and on the rendering, you have diamond. Which will it be?
Rendering,
A diamond.
please, yeah. Again, I got involved with it when I was, after the renderings were done, and decided to change the renderings. This would be a better picture than the black and white.
Okay, so
So
you have
this would be your-
elevations that actually mark out that.
I can mark out the elevations, and I can make notes here that would refer to these renderings, and I can date them and initial them if you wish.
If you even go to page 3 of this rendering, Rob, it disappears again.
Yeah, I know.
Page 3 is very blank. It's, and, you know,
That's all.
Do you think the columns are mentioned?
And the windows are an aluminum clad product?
windows is going to be aluminum clad or vinyl. I'm not sure at this point, but the color would be white. I don't know if the board has any specific preference over the cladding.
Well, I mean, what you're proposing with your material would have to be complete.
Yeah.
So you would have to basically tell us what you're
Would be
using.
vinyl clad. Yes, sir.
Jeff, you have any comments?
I like the overall design.
Susan?
I don't like the eyebrow window, but that's nothing new for me. And I think the columns look a little mingy, given
Sorry?
this. The columns holding up the overhang over the front door
Yeah.
seem insubstantial, given the size of this house.
Too skinny.
They're too skinny. It just, and I do think if you got rid of that eyebrow, it would be a lot nicer. So, yes. And let me, okay, it's on 4 acres of land,
4.4.
and there's no outbuildings in this proposal?
There is an existing building that is to remain, which we're using as an outbuilding.
Myron, maybe it would be helpful, what's the diameter of those columns, Susan?
I was trying to read that, Mr. Broadmead. Typically, it's 12 inches, but if the board says tonight, let's go to thicker column.
Bless you. 14, okay?
Substantial.
Right.
Not with the house this big.
Which is a typical size, though, which is a typical size. I have no problem increasing the size of those.
You want thicker columns?
I think it would improve it, but I'm not a stickler for it. It just seems,
Also that the bases and the capitals on them are a little
that might be,
bit small.
yeah, everything seems, doesn't it just seem like,
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's a grand house,
yeah, with these.
and you have these very
Yeah.
undefined columns that are just, they could just be metal railings. There's
Right, I do think
insignificance. So what they're saying is they want more presentation
They're out
for
of
this.
scale for the size of the house.
Christina, are you okay?
No, I'm fine.
We're all sick.
Okay. All right, you have any comment? You need a moment?
No, I don't need a moment. I think that the columns should be more substantial at the bottom. I don't object to the end of it.
Rob, you have anything further?
Two quick questions. I think just to throw in also on this entryway area, it's a big, flat, open porch roof. It's pretty wide. It looks a little modern, actually, at least in this rendering. It sort of doesn't look, and part of it is the size and the scale and the massing of the columns that you're hearing about.
Right.
But maybe it's that the porch itself is too wide, side to side, or something along those lines. I'm just having trouble with, I don't mind a grand entrance. This house deserves a grand entrance. It's just not adding up yet, and I think maybe
Sorry to interrupt, Rob. If as I'm talking to the board members, if I increase the size of these columns from 12 inches to 16 inches, visually, it would help bring that interest, make that visually smaller, maybe. Because I've done this before, the same exact proportions. And maybe this is a bit, it's not depicting exactly the real picture. If I don't have a problem increasing the size of those columns so they look more substantial.
That would be great. I had one other question, because I didn't see on the site, or to me from the site plan, it appeared as though the existing stucco gates that are on Captain's Neck Lane for this property don't show up on the proposed,
Captain's Neck?
on Captain's Neck Lane, right?
Cooper's
Neck, sorry, Cooper's Neck, excuse me. I've jumped over 3/4 of them up.
The existing stucco gates?
There's a grand pair of stucco gates with wrought iron mullions to them in
Right.
2 circles. And I'm just curious as to what's happening with those gates.
I have to consult with the builder on that. As far as I know right now, they were not part of this application.
Okay.
They're on the property.
Okay.
They're not, well, it's not part of his application.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if he's, or changing them, it would be one
Right.
thing, but
Oh.
you're forced
I'm sure if they-
to now make
So maybe just a
renovations.
personal comment.
Sure.
John, you seem troubled by something.
I just
They're part of my
Part
presence.
of the original Mia Fiore.
Yeah, they're cool.
I would just ask if you could ask your clients what they're doing with them, because rather than, if they can be removed, which I suppose they can, it looks like they're planning on doing them. I would love if they could take efforts to try to relocate those gates.
We would understand that any alterations to your gate, existing
I
gate,
have
would
to
have
come
to
here.
come back before this board
I
for
understand.
discussion anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, that says that.
Any public comment on the application?
Excuse me, is this the gatehouse property or the other one? No, it's the main one.
This is the other one, off
This
of
is
Cooper's
the-
Neck.
But those walls, that, with the portholes, I always call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm just going to change the column thicknesses, diameters to 16 inches for the ARB
And
rendering.
some consistency in the elevations to show windows, window treatments, you know.
Right.
I'm sorry, what was that, sir?
The gatehouse is around the corner.
You done? Okay, so there's some consistency on the windows.
Right.
You know, you have some photos, some elevations, some renderings of diamond. I'd like to see that demonstrated in the actual elevations.
Right, but for the
Not the rendering?
board's decision, I would refer them to this rendering, and that's the
Well, if
only...
you're coming back before the board, which you are, I would say you can come back
Do I have to come back, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay,
showing us now the new pillars.
right.
And since you're coming back, you can also, you can...
Can it be made part of the record that this would be the final picture with the 16-inch columns?
You have a problem with doing the elevations?
No.
You're doing the elevations anyway, aren't you?
Right, absolutely. Just want to save you some time.
Make the windows consistent.
All right.
All right, you know, with the application, right now you have some information to bring back. You'll do so at the next meeting, and right now you need an adjournment, correct?
Whatever the procedure is, Mr. Chairman.
So the applicant is wishing to adjourn to prepare itself. Motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn.
Make a
Thank you very
motion
much.
to approve the applicant of 180 Great Plains Road, request to adjourn to our next meeting.
Motion by Christina, is there a second?
I second the motion.
By Susan, all in favor. Rob, Christina. Susan?
Aye.
Jeff? And I'm an aye as well. Final application for this evening.
Thank you.
We have the affidavit posting John Bennett for the applicant, and have Jason Bevins and Andrew Oyen of Ferguson and Shemabian Architects, and Lisa Zaloga, who is the corresponding, oh, there you are, Lisa, great. And this property is currently improved with a existing single-family residence and a non-conforming garage studio.
Just a couple of, just a moment.
I just want to, just before the architects talk about the proposed building, currently what you have here is
You lay that flat so you can see.
there's a house in a non-conforming location, a garage in a non-conforming location. Bless you. And there's a certificate of appropriateness to tear both of them down that was granted by the board back in November 28, 2016. So the applicant is proposing construction of a new single-family residence. There are accessory structures that are in design now, but we're not going to show you them because they haven't been finalized, or just here for the single-family residence, and I'll ask the architects to present.
Yes, so our clients were interested in constructing a house in the sort of what I would call maybe the second.
Your name for the record.
I'm sorry?
Your name for the record.
Andrew Oyen, yes. In what I would call
Spell your last name, please.
Oyen. In the second phase of shingle style in Southampton, which was a little less fanciful than the first, and a little more incorporating more colonial revival elements. So similar to the Breeze House or the Shinnecock Club, where you started to see classical elements like columns and gables as opposed to gambrels, fan-light windows, elements from federal period architecture. The materials for the project would be typical. We would do Alaskan yellow cedar because it's closer to the original Eastern white, both for sidewalls and roofs. Trim would be painted white. Columns would be painted white, and windows will be painted white as well. We're planning to whitewash the brick of foundations and chimneys. So let's see, we'll flip through drawings quickly for you. So site plan with Great Plains Road on the far right, the north side of the house. East is on the bottom of the sheet. House is located within the setbacks at the extreme northern end. Existing trees will be retained where possible. We're not occupied within the setbacks, and new trees will be planted along the perimeter to create privacy.
So is this your proposed landscape plan?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for marking existing and proposed as well as height. Appreciate it.
Sure.
This will be a street view of the house, illustrating existing and new trees to remain. And first floor plan with north at the bottom of the sheet, north the entrance, east on the left-hand side. Second floor plan.
You can go right to the roof elevation and then the elevation.
Okay, that's basement plan. So the facade of the house is organized with two sections. One, a casually symmetrical section with the front door in the center, a porch on the right-hand side, a gabled roof with a fan light, and then a less formal family wing, or what would have been considered the service wing of the house.
I do want to just point out that this is not an accessible porch.
It is not
Not an accessible porch.
Very prominent decorative porch there.
Yes.
And it has vertical, it has pickets and then it goes to a Chippendale design?
Yes, that's right. Just in the key elements above the front door and above the bay window on the left. On the right, excuse me. And the rear facade, the south facade, has a porch that extends all the way across. There's an open porch on the extreme west end, and then on the extreme east end, the projecting family wing with a lower ridge height than the large than the front wing. Next sheet is the top elevation is the east end of the house. Grade slopes down to incorporate a garage, and you can see the lower ridge of the family wing. The bottom sheet is the west elevation facing towards a garden with another.
Such small, very narrow dog shed dormers. It just seems really.
They're ornamental and for ventilation. The west elevation has an open porch with another gable and fan light facing a garden. So materials are in the last sheet then. So whitewashed brick for the foundations and the chimneys in the lower left-hand corner. Exterior sidewalls and roof would be Alaskan yellow, cedar shingles, white painted trim and windows. Columns are similar in both material and style to the ones in the center elevation, or photograph, excuse me. Combination of Doric order and square columns.
And you have on the, I don't have the page number, but you just have the detail of the kind of columns that you're proposing?
Yes, that's right. Yes, both material and similar in design.
Jeff?
I find the design very appealing. It's elegantly simple and simply elegant.
Thank you.
Susan?
I loved how sort of severe it was until we got to that alternating parts of the deck, the fence,
The
the
railing.
rail. But I wouldn't stop it, but I'm disappointed with that part of it. I like the rest of it plenty. I think it's a very elegant, I like that you didn't do what you did anywhere else. Sorry. But I like the severity of it, that's me.
Christina?
I like it simple and beautiful.
Rob?
I had a couple questions. This, on the elevation, the main elevation, over here on the east end, you have 3 windows.
Yes.
I'm not seeing that in the plan. Has there been a change, or am I missing something?
Should be in the plan. It's intended to replicate an enclosed porch.
You are absolutely correct.
Oh,
That's our mistake.
So plan errors, our apologies.
Okay.
Perfectly correct.
So which is it going to be?
It is, it will match the elevations, yes,
Yeah,
will match the
okay.
elevations.
I appreciate your description as an apt one of sort of the next generation, the second iteration wave, and I like the colonial features to it. I'm a little concerned with the window in what I assume is a stairwell. I haven't checked.
Yes.
The size of this window here.
Yes.
I mean, I like that this form is different. It's very different. Maybe a little too different for my taste, but maybe not enough to sway me. But because I think there's a lot of roof line here and some awkward jogging on the roof line. But this window, what's the purpose of a window that large? Just to get light into a stairwell.
Lighting a large U-shaped stairwell, yes.
And I haven't looked at the landscape plan. Is there a planting in front of that?
Yes, there's actually there's a parking court on the left-hand side in front of what would have been the service wing, and then steps that go up to a large formal garden in front of the main section of the house. So in a way, the left section is meant to disappear. It's meant to be something that you walk by, and then the right-hand side of the house is the more composed section.
I did notice, Curtis, what you had mentioned with some of the smaller dormers and this domed dormer. But in the spirit of, I think there are a number of houses, for instance, in East Hampton Village in particular, that are from this era, authentic era of more colonial shingle-styled house, and they often have these sorts of quirks in the family. So I like that. It's just, I've had to point to one element. It's this jog of the roof line, and then this large window with the shed roof that comes down to a different eave line because it's in a stairwell, so it's a half story. I get that, but something in here looks to me actually slightly modern. Not so I don't know what detailing you might consider, but that was a concern. And I'm just trying to see if I had some other quick
Rob,
questions.
if I could just point out
Yes.
as well, given the existing conditions of the trees, most of that will actually be obscured as well.
And your setback, is it about 85 feet or so, do I remember, in front of the house? It seemed
That's
like,
right, yes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
okay. There's a change of grade on the driveway.
Yes.
What's going to be clad on that wall, the retaining wall at the end of the driveway?
It will be whitewashed brick.
That's the whitewash brick?
Yes, on both sides, on the east side of the retaining wall and on what would be the south and west side as well.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
I asked a question about the dormer. I was going to question you on some of the returns, because it just seems like they were just stuck in there every so often. We had the returns on the gables, but it's not so out of character that, would stop me from moving on with the application. I don't know if you saw that, Rob, the various returns, but very detailed. I think it's clean architecture. I don't have any issue with the design. I think it's going to set back. I'm sorry it's going to set back so far that you won't see it. But
Don't say that, ever.
Susan,
well,
do you have the concern about the size of the gravel or not? No. You mentioned something to me.
you're talking about material.
Just the gravel
I don't think that's our thing.
Okay.
The gravel's right up on the street.
Okay, not our thing. Sorry.
All right.
It's not our thing, but that's too
Thanks.
bad.
Any public comment on the application? All right, since there is no public comment, the application is located in the historic district, therefore it requires written decision by council. He's going to be busy. So we'll try to have a written decision by the next meeting. We'll try our best. And if for some reason it's not going to be, you'll be notified by the building department.
Thank you.
Motion to close the application for written decision by council.
Make a motion that we close Innovative Properties LLC at 224 Great Plains for written decision by our council.
Motion by Christina, and second by Rob. All in favor, Rob?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff? And I'm an aye as well. And that concludes this evening's meeting. A motion to close.
That we close the meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation on April 23rd, 2008.
That motion is by Christina. Is there a second? I will
Second the motion.
Susan seconds the motion. All in favor, Rob?
Aye.
Christina? Susan? Jeff? And I'm an aye. Good night.
Thanks.